So I want to pivot from that to the gloating portion of the schedule. I get yelled at all the time for headlines. Like I know I hate writing headlines for YouTube. I just kind of want to talk, and whatever I think is going to need to go in there, I try to get at. But this one very much, right? We got the number 1 quarterback in the 2021 class committed to Oklahoma, and the number 1 in the 2022 quarterback class.
There you go.
There you go.
Put some respect on his name.
There you go. Right? Coming out of South Lake Carroll, 4,000 yards passing, 45 tutties, just 3 picks, 500-plus yards rushing, can move really well. I'm excited about him. He's the most talked about sophomore quarterback in the state of Texas since Kyler friggin' Murray. I mean, again, I'm going to ask you, do you want to say Texas is?
I'm not falling for the bait, RJ, so knock it off, all right? And so I want to get to this. You need to knock it off, all right? I want to get to this. Look. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's a shot in the arm for the program. Now, we have work that needs to be done right now with General Ellinger and sending him off the right way. If we, God bless that we make it through the season, right? And Tom Herman and Mike Yursich, this offense is going to be everything we want. The defense is going to be healthy. We're going to revamp under Chris Ash. But as we get to, what you want me to say, I am excited about being in a new decade. There's new energy here, man. Look, 2010 to 2019 was a dark period for Texas. There's no. I'm not going to navigate around that or try to sugarcoat anything. But what I will say is, Quinn Ewers, coming class of 2022, it's 20 years from the last, 100 composite perfect rated person, Vince Young, not the last one, but the last one that Texas had, Vince Young in 2002. And the energy that injects to the program, the energy that automatically will inject into recruiting. You're already seeing it play out right now with a lot of these guys on social media, guys that want to play with a wonderkin, a phenom. You see what he did at South Lake Carroll, marquee program in the DFW area. There's very few areas that are more competitive, especially at 6A, RJ. I think you agree with me on this, from a standpoint of week in, week out of who they play, who they schedule, and then even in the playoffs. I mean, they were eliminated by Duncanville, which is funny because Tom Herman was at that game sitting next to Jaquindon Jackson's mother. And Jaquindon Jackson's the starting quarterback on the other side who eliminated South Lake Carroll. And both of those guys are, hopefully will be in the quarterback room come when Quinn gets here. But when you look at the player and why are people so excited, why is the hype around a guy who's only a sophomore in high school? Look no further than the throws he even made in that Duncanville loss when he's rolling to his left and the flick of the wrist can flick it 55 yards on a dime. When the pocket's clean, how he delivers the football short, intermediate, deep. No throw is a challenge for him when you have premier arm strength. His arm really reminds me of when Matthew Stafford came out of Highland Park. I think that was 2006.
Yep.
And just the pro style talent. And when people say pro style, this is one thing I wanted to get your opinion on, RJ, because I know we'll pivot to talking Caleb Williams as well. It used to be when you evaluated the quarterback position, you evaluated on decision making, accuracy, arm strength, toughness, and just overall how you carry yourself. I think now with the way football's evolved, and to give you guys credit, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, the guys y'all have had under Lincoln have added to this. There's now a new category, and it's, are you a playmaker? Can you create off schedule, out of the pocket, movement, footwork, throwing off balance? Because you look at the NFL right now, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes is going to make half a billy because he can make no-look passes, and he's just an incredible prospect on top of checking those boxes. So I just want to kick it back over to you in terms of your opinion on that, because he's one of the most dynamic passers of the football I've seen at that age already, and he's only going to get bigger. He's only going to get more refined in his craft, especially with the coaches he's working with up in the DFW area.
So the point I'd like to make on this is the difference between IQ tests and how they were used at the beginning to basically try to identify the best, most capable people in the world. What we found about those tests is that they were geared toward Anglo-Saxon, Caucasian, European, white guys, right? And that was very clear. They even used eugenics to try to further that point. And that led to Nazis, and that led to the Holocaust, and that led to even more entrenched in racism. And what we know from Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael, as institutional racism. You can look at that in football, because pro style is another way of saying we have a big white guy, right? That's what that meant, right? That's what that meant. It meant Drew Bledsoe, right? It meant Kenny Stabler. It did not mean Eldridge Dickey, right? It did not mean Shaq Harris. It did not mean Marlon Briscoe. But as you have seen quarterback play and offenses evolve, you've seen two things. And I give a lot of credit to Nick Saban on this front. Saban has always been able to recruit. And one of the reasons he's always been able to recruit is because he never let those things get in his way. I want the best players I possibly can get. Jimmy Johnson was the same way. You guys go win football games. And what that led to was looking at places that were historically black communities that were come out of separate but equal and Jim Crow, where we're playing a different kind of football. We're playing a better kind of football, and we're better at it than most, right? And then you integrate those into predominantly white universities, and we finally get to, say, 1970, Julius Whittier is integrated into Texas's football program, becomes its first black letter winner, and on to this point that we're talking about now with Rattler, with Mahomes, with the idea of a pro-style quarterback being, can that guy go get you a bucket when everybody knows he's got to get you a bucket? On 3rd and 14, can he go make a play for you, or are you just going to be up a creek here? And that's the reason I think Quinn Ewers factors into this conversation, is he can go get you a bucket, right? And that's not necessarily something that Texas has had. Matter of fact, I mean, you called him general. I'm not going to go that far. I mean, I don't know about that. I'll go
that's my dude, man. That's my dude, and he's General Samuel George Ellinger. I know you go hard, G, but I'm going general. But go ahead.
I'll go Sam. Sam is one of my favorite quarterbacks. He's tremendously confident, right? And that's his superpower. Like, I had him on my radio show during Big 12 Media Days last year, and I asked him, do you feel some kind of way about, like, folks like me coming at you? He's like, nah, that's part of it. I'm the quarterback at the University of Texas. I'm not doing it right unless somebody has something to say. And from there, I'm like, nah, I can ride with you. That's okay.
Yeah, he gets it.
Right. So to further this conversation around IQ and pro style and what are we looking at, I'd round it out by saying, look, if Riley wants the quarterback, it's because that quarterback can go get you a bucket. And any guy that Riley wants is a guy that you should want too. Same thing with Brock Vandagriff going to Georgia, right? I feel good about Georgia and what they're going to be. And as we talk about Caleb Williams, that is the way that I interpret him. Because he actually has that on tape, right? He has one of these great high school football games where they're trying to win the equivalent of their state championship game, and he needs to make a Hail Mary pass to go win the game after they're down like 21, right, in the second half for Gonzaga's Purple Eagles, which is a pretty outstanding name. But the team that they were playing is DeMatha, and DeMatha is the Stags. And I love some of these nicknames. They're awesome. So I think, though, this also signals Mike Yurcich's imprint on the offense. And that's been the case, right? Because when Herman got this job, he got this job in part because we thought he was an offensive genius. He won a national championship at Ohio State running basketball on grass. He turned Houston into not just a group of five power, but the kind of group of five power that can hand Oklahoma its head, right? And that's what he was brought to Texas to do, to hand Oklahoma its head. It ain't been that, right? You win a shootout, 48-45, and then you lose the Big 12 championship game. Then your man does fall for the trap, right? And you go 8-5 the next year, and you get some losses that are quite literally indefensible for a program the stature of the University of Texas, right? That's my one peeve about Longhorn football. You're doing the least with the most. And when I look at your roster, I'm terrified. But that was with Tim Beck and Tom Herman pulling the strings, right?
Yeah.
Now that you got
Orlando as well.
Right. Now that you got Yurcich, and we'll see what Ash does, right? Because it ain't been great since Ohio State. It ain't been great, but it's a change. And I like where the offense could be. But is it going to be that offense before Quinn Ewers gets there? I don't think so, because Sam ain't that quarterback. Or at least he hasn't demonstrated that he is that quarterback.